So when all this started, right, an idea about machines doing the work what humans are doing. Yeah, mostly machines do what kind of work? When it comes to software, mostly whatever is your brain doing, you would want a machine to do it. Your brain is actually getting replaced by a machine. Agree? And when it comes to robot, your physicality, the physical actions what you have been doing can be replaced by a robot. But when it comes to robot, you need a whole lot of things. What would you need? You would need software, you would need electronics, you would need electrical, you would need mechanical, whole lot of things, right? And integration of all these domains would make a robot. Artificial intelligence you would add to it, and then a robot would start performing, as in whatever the actions you're doing. But here we have to talk on the software in particular. So where what you're trying to do is whatever your brain is doing, you would want to you would want a machine to do it. Agree? So typically humans, right, we do not like monotonous work. What do we do? If I am doing a work with a repetitivity, I'm asked to count the notes in a bank. I would hate doing that job all my lifetime, right? Because we want excitement, we want new things in life, right? We don't get satisfied with the same mundane things, right? Doing the same repetitive things. So what I would want, I invented a machine where it could count the notes for me. Likewise, if we go back to those days, right, when this was evolving, we made a calculator. It all started with the calculator, right? Instead of you sitting and doing it, having different mathematics tricks and then doing the calculation, you would want a device which can easily calculate for you. Agree? Likewise, you can talk on many devices. You want to measure something, some imbalance in your body, there are so many measures and there is a device for that. You want to measure your sugar, you want to measure your diabetes, you want to measure so many things, yeah. So the that is why we call it as a program. What do we mean by a program? You program it once and it does it so many times, you need not have to repeat it. That is why it is called programmed. So we always use this word very literally, right? That humans are also being programmed, right? You get it? So when it all started, there's so much which happened before even a calculator came in. We will not go back, but let's take our starting point as a calculator. Okay. So when this was made, yeah, it is nothing but they made a service for you, right? You have a device, it is a service, right? What kind of service it is? It is a calculator. You give some input and it gives back some output. This is also a service. Okay. Likewise, the software started evolving, you know, taking the calculator as a principle, right, as a fundamental. Yeah. And it started evolving, the more programming came in. You invented the programming languages from 1950s and all, right? And then how those programs were invented, we'll talk in a different session. But the programs were invented where you actually started telling a machine, I will give you an instruction, you have to give me a response. And when I give you an instruction, I would have developed an intelligence there. I would have written a program. The way I give an input, I have written the instructions and it gives me an output. It's a service, right? So I will take it little further, which we all understand. So then slowly, you wanted to see this, right? Calculator also, there is an UI on the top, there is a display, right? Where you do 1 plus 2, you get that. Likewise, that visualization is available on the device, but then you invented some device called computer, and you wanted to see something visually, right? Somebody is doing something there and you want to see it here. Whole lot of use cases, right? Not only that use cases. So if you are, let us assume you have your This is your laptop, and this is your, this is called client. Okay, this is called client, or it's a browser. You invented a world wide web. You write something, www dot something you write, and you send this request to a server. Okay, so think about it. This client and browser understands only HTML. It does not understand any other language. It understands purely HTML. So for this, when you have made a request to a server, of course your server should respond only what your UI understands. Hence, your server will have to give you an HTML response. Your server. So now let us assume Aishwarya has built a server. Her machine itself is a server. Yeah. And Anushka is she wrote some function, some function, and Anushka is hitting. This is Anushka's machine. Okay. This is Anushka's machine. And this is Aishwarya's machine. Okay. Aishwarya has written some function, but then Aishwarya will have to write a program in such a way she has to give back an HTML page, because Anushka is trying to access that service, right, of Aishwarya. She is trying to access it from her browser client, which is a client. Okay. I mean, you may argue XML will also work, Aishwarya can also give XML response, not necessary, but then it will have to be embedded into an HTML, because your client browser will understand only HTML. Okay, so this is a very, very plain, we call it as a two-tier architecture. This is when in the 1980s, it was like this. Whatever applications you were building, the server side technology, we say, whatever you were building then, you had a database like this. Okay, you would get the data from the database, you would make an HTML, and then you would give it to the client browser. Okay, but then this works very beautifully. This is just a two-tier architecture because it's a client server communication, we say. Okay, but then in the real world, or when your application is of a large size, okay, so and there are so many reasons why we would want to make it more better. What we do is, we say whatever your HTML applications was there, the UI application, so we make this as an UI application. Okay, there are so many frameworks available where you make the UI application. And this is Anushka's machine. Okay, so, and whatever Aishwarya was writing, this is Aishwarya's machine. This is Sanjay sir's machine. Okay, so Sanjay sir is hosting a database. All right, so it is Sanjay sir has hosted MySQL. It is his laptop. Okay, you're getting it there, right? Yeah, and this is Aishwarya's laptop. Aishwarya has written, let us assume she has written a Java code or ASP.NET or PHP or Ruby. It could be any language, right? Or Python. Okay, here she is writing it in Java, but it could be any programming language. And this is UI application. This is written by Nagraj. It is Nagraj's machine. And this is Anushka's machine. So Anushka makes an HTTP call from here. It goes to an UI application, which is on Nagraj's machine. And then what Nagraj does is, Nagraj knows that the data what Anushka is looking for, let us assume she is looking for get employee details. She is HR executive. She's interested in employee details, right? She calls a get employee, she makes this call, whatever she writes it here, right? Some URL get employee she does. And then goes Nagaraj. What Nagaraj does, he goes and makes a request to HTTP request to Aishwarya's machine. What Aishwarya does is Aishwarya goes and makes a connection with Sanjay sir's machine. Sanjay sir gives a SQL response. Aishwarya would have written a whole lot of program and she gives an HTTP response, but then she will give an XML or a JSON. Okay. And Nagaraj takes this XML and a JSON. He makes a beautiful HTML page and he gives it back to Anushka. All right. So all these machines, what I just spoke, I will replace it with a real world Unix machines, a big machines, right? Here you are working on a only 16 GB or 8 GB or less storage machines. These are all Windows operating system, but then these all in the real world will be replaced with a much larger machines where HP, IBM, they give their machines with more larger capacity. It's all same. It's just that here you are working on a Windows operating system. There you would have Linux or Unix machines. These machines will be, this is just an analogy, right? But you can actually set up something like this. Okay. So the point of discussion is a service, right? So here in the two-tier architecture, you saw this and this was a part of a same system. Aishwarya herself took the data from MySQL. She made a HTML page and she gave it. But now we have a one layer of extra abstraction, right? Nagaraj is taking that responsibility, but the communication between Nagaraj and Aishwarya is through a service. It's via an HTTP call and it is through a service. He will make a request. What request he will make? He will make an XML or a JSON request, and Aishwarya will respond back in a XML or JSON. Nobody is denying you to do something else, try something else. You could send a text to CSV, your own format, but these are the two famous, now JSON is so famous because why? That's a more standard format, standardized format where we all software developers understand that format, and there are whole and tons of libraries which are available, which is easier for developers to use it, and it's more secured also. Hence, JSON has taken up in the market and it's very, very famous. Okay, so the whole idea is, I'll just add one more perspective, complexity towards this. So this is how the real world applications work. Now Aishwarya is also given a task. She is not only taking the data from here, she is also taking a data from one SMTP server, which is a mail server. So she will make a call here. She will aggregate this response with certain rule, business rule, and then she will respond. This kind of aggregation, what happens right here, she could go to so many systems. She could go to this system, this system, this system. Before she makes the response, right? She could go to many systems, and this layer, right, which does all this, is called a middleware layer. It's a broker. It's called a broker. Okay. You go to APMC, right? Whole lot of vegetable vendors, vegetable farmers, they'll come and sell it to Aishwarya, and then Aishwarya will send it to so many people here. So it is actually a broker system or a middleware who does this. The broker system has a lot of responsibility. This is SQL, this is SMTP, this is file. So she is taking the data from different sources which are sitting on different platforms or formats, and she will transform the data and give it to different formats. So these systems are very evolved, important systems which are called broker systems. Okay, so this is the service oriented architecture for you. Okay, so what is a service oriented architecture? The way you have object oriented architecture, right? This is a service oriented architecture. What do we mean by service oriented architecture? In a simplicity, you open an Excel sheet and they give you so many functions, right? Yeah, it's something like this, right? If I write it in a generic way, yeah, so it is this. in Excel sheet. Likewise, in the programming language, you will write method, function, yeah, procedure. You do so many things. The whole idea is you give some input and it gives an output. Service oriented, Swiggy, yes, Swiggy, Zomato, everything has been digitized. You want to buy a specs, you have lens card. It's a service. You want to buy food, it is done. You want to buy a bike, all the enterprises in the world want to do the digitization because they want to give their services not only physically but also in a digital way where it is easier for people to take that service, and we all software engineers are going to make that happen. Yeah, so that is a service oriented. So if you slowly increase this to the much larger scale, right, there will be applications, big large applications which will give the services, get customer, add customer, update customer, delete customer. You go to Amazon, they give you so many services, right? The way Amazon is the most used app, right? What we use for shopping. You see there, right? You go and register yourself, that is a service. You go and order something, that is a service. You cancel an order, that is a service. Yeah, you add to a cart, you go to a payment gateway, everything is a service. How does the data is, how data gets communicated? Through these services. Somebody in some server would have made this service and you use those service, and then you are, somebody is a consumer, somebody is a provider. Are we following? Yeah. So we'll stop here for the next session.